So while everybody here was in the 1 month winter retreat, Venerable Khonchok and I were in Singapore. And what surprised me was that I had a number of opportunities to do the Chenrezig practice in different settings. And that's what I'd like to share a bit about today. So the first day we arrived in Singapore, I received news that my grandmother had passed away and very early in the morning. So immediately I had the opportunity to go and be at the wake over a number of days. And of course, I was very amazed how the karma ripened to be able to be with my family at that time. For many years, I had made prayers to be of support to my mother, mainly because she's very, very close to my grandparents. Both my grandparents are in their 90s. I mean, my grandfather is still alive. So, when I left to ordain, I already mentally said goodbye, or every year I'm saying goodbye in some way, or, practicing for that moment. So it was quite something to be able to be in the country and to reconnect with the family in this way, because every day I went to the wake for a little bit to do prayers. Venerable Khonchok came, and I was very, very grateful that Venerable Chödrön was able to come and make a connection with my extended family. And she led the Chenrezig practice at the wake. So in Singapore, it's usually an open casket kind of setup. So, she led the practice, and then all these different family members. My family is not Buddhist, so it was just interesting for me to see who resonated with it, who came forward, who was like, oh, do you feel the power of the practice? And who was like, huh? Because I had one uncle who was very moved, and as my cousin said, gave a very positive Yelp review for us, going around telling everyone, like, do you feel her teacher's power? And other people are like, uh-huh. So, it was just cool. And personally, I felt like, oh, good. All these people in my extended family have met my teacher. I can die now. My job is done. Not the most virtuous of mind states, but yeah. So that was one surprise, to be able to do this practice with my non-Buddhist family. And even greater surprise was around the same time, my cousin, his wife's mother passed away suddenly in Poland while on holiday, and she's fairly young, seemed to be in completely good health, was just on holiday with her youngest daughter, and had some intestinal issue, and then in a couple of days had cardiac arrest and passed away. And it was extremely stressful for my cousin's family because, they had to deal with interpreters, all kinds of bureaucracy to try and get the body back in Singapore. Not to mention just like the shock, and then she had been caring for their young twins. So everybody was like, and then to my great surprise, my cousin, near the end of my grandmother's wake, said, would you please come and do some prayers? And he's inclined toward Christianity, is my perception. His wife has no Buddhist religious background, but he said, please come. So of course I went, and it was just, again, relying on all the training we've received here, how to relate to different people, walking into a situation where I don't know most of the people except my cousin and his wife. So I asked, did your mother have any kind of spiritual practice? And his wife said, well, she would go to the temple on Waterloo Street in Singapore, where that's dedicated to Kuan Yin, and she would pray to Kuan Yin. So I thought, well, what other practice should we do then? Obviously, the Chenrezig practice immediately. So that's what I led, with them kind of standing around the coffin. And I thought to sing She Carries Me for some reason. And I hope it was helpful, I don't know. But, again, just to be able to connect and contribute in this way to, again, just repeating everything I had heard Venerable say just about a week ago, now in a whole different, with a different group of people, but with the same kind of grief and suffering. And to be able to talk to her youngest sister, who was with the mother during the dying process, who blamed herself, of course, for bringing the mother on the holiday. I'm like, oh, karma ripens. We really, don't know. So to be able to, again, reconnect with this cousin and his family in this way was a nice surprise. And then a few days later, we're invited to help some friends of Sravasti, Abbey, Singapore, bless their businesses. And for one of them, they were starting a new cafe. So again, we're in this kind of shopping mall near the hospital. It was like a completely crazy setting where in Singapore, it's like, story after story of shops and shops and shops and shops. And there's this little empty cafe space that's under renovation. And we're invited in there to help to bless the space. And again, Venerable led the Chenrezig practice, right? So we were going around reciting the long mantra, sprinkling water. And what was very beautiful was that she encouraged Richard, the owner, to think about running this business with compassion. Yeah, to think about how, make aspirations that everybody who comes into this business, everybody who comes to this cafe, who has a meal here, is going to have a peaceful and happy mind, is going to be of benefit to others, right? Is going to generate compassion. Yeah, so we're all there making these beneficial aspirations. And to my great surprise, at the end of the trip, we received a message from Richard over the phone. And he said that prayer really stuck with him. Because, shortly after the cafe opened, he always thought, and Venerable also pointed out, it's in the mall that's next to the hospital. Yeah, I mean, what else are you going to do? You're sick, you're going to go shopping. Or shop for the people who are sick, I guess. So, she said, you're going to get a lot of customers who are going to the hospital, right? So to think about that. And he really took it to heart. And so he said one day there was a customer in the cafe, and somehow he found out that this person was living in the hospital. Something like that. It was like a long-term patient. And so he just thought, they live here. Why don't I just offer them the meal for free? Or he just had that thought. And the patient was, that person was just so touched. Yeah, it's like, and the person later said, I want to do some kind of add-on to the set meal, but I want to pay for that. Yeah, and then Richard said his staff immediately thought, no, we should sponsor everything. Yeah, but Richard told his staff, this person, they want to contribute. Yeah, it gives them dignity, let them do that. So, just the care and attention he took with this one person, and he sent this message saying, it's because of the practice we did together. It just helped me to have the right motivation for starting this cafe and to bear it in mind. So I thought, wow, just doing this practice, it kind of really blessed the cafe. It blessed his mind, really, to run a cafe with compassion. And then toward the end of the trip, there was one day, again, kind of surreal, where I was at a family gathering, and suddenly, in a very short period of time, I got all these messages about people whose mothers were unwell in different varieties, and I quickly sent them to Venerable, who were also like, okay, just about everybody we know's mother is having some kind of issue. And for one of them, their mother was going to have a surgery. And they were just asking for prayers in general, but I just thought to offer, we're in Singapore, I'm happy to come see your mother if it would be helpful at all. And to my surprise, he agreed, because, I don't know, we don't have such a close connection maybe, and he's not a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner, but he said, just come, that's fine. And I was, again, consulting with Venerable, what should I do? And she said, you don't know, she might be connected to Chinese Buddhism, she may not be a Theravada practitioner, who knows? Yeah, just go there and find out. So I went, and I took some time to just connect with the mother, chat, see how she's doing. Of course, someone is about to go into some very intensive spinal surgery. She had a very happy mind. We talked about her kids, her grandkids. And of course, something comes up about a strange family member, but I didn't know her well enough to kind of go further with that. But so we made a connection, and I thought to do the Chenrezig practice, right? What better way to go and have surgery than with a happy, compassionate mind, thinking of the kindness of others? And immediately she connected with that. She's like, the people here are so kind. She said, all these nurses, everybody is taking care of me, all my kids, the grandkids are here. Immediately, that just tuned her into the kindness of others. She started talking about that spontaneously, how she, just really appreciated all the care she was receiving from all kinds of monastics praying for her because her son had asked people to do that. So that was good. Yeah, we were immediately on the kind of a good track. Yeah, so I did the practice with her. And at the end, she seemed, the practice moved something in her. She didn't talk about it, but you could see that it had moved something. And to my great surprise, our friend at the end said, wow, I'm amazed my mother was so receptive. He said, first of all, because you're like a young nun, and I didn't think she was going to take you seriously. I was like, I'm not that young. I'm middle-aged, but okay. Then he said, also, I'm so amazed that this practice is so accessible. He said, it's so much better than trying to tell my mother about anicca, dukkha, and anatta, impermanence, dukkha, and selflessness, which I'm like, really? You wanted to try and talk to her about that before surgery? Okay. So he said, it's so much better to do this practice. It helped her to have like a positive mind. And he's like, this is such an accessible practice for old people. And I was like, this is an accessible practice for all people. I don't know. I do this as part of my daily practice. It's just that has a lot to do with, people who don't practice Mahayana Buddhism thinking it's like Kuan Yin is superstition, that she's not actually a Buddha and so forth. Yeah. So it was just interesting to hear his perspective. So yeah, I was surprised and very grateful for these opportunities to connect with Chenrezig, with all these different people in these ways, and just moved by the incredible compassion of the Buddha to create practices that are so accessible and yet at the same time deeply profound, as we are learning from all these teachings we're receiving on the Heart Sutra, that we can then go much, much deeper and now in retreat with the Chenrezig practice. Yeah, so it was a good reminder of how to put into practice. Every day in the elevator, we would see this picture of Lama Zopa, right, telling us to live with compassion, die with compassion, grow old with compassion, eat with compassion, sleep with compassion. So suddenly it kind of came alive that way that, yes, this is a practice I'll be doing every day, and hopefully when I die,